Another week and still no announcement of a new media rights deal for AEW. Last Sunday at the All Out Media Scrum, Tony Khan said that he was 100% confident there would be a deal with Warner Brothers Discovery that would keep AEW on TBS and TNT for years to come. And when he was asked how confident he was that something would be announced in the next 30 days, he put the number at 90%. So it's likely either the deal is done and they're just waiting for the right time to announce it, like maybe the 5-year anniversary of Dynamite coming up next month, or Tony Khan actually has not put pen to paper yet, but it's just a formality and they're just working out the finer details. Dave Meltzer claims that the deal is done and that pay-per-view shows on Max are believed to in some form be a part of the deal. There's also been talk of the deal not having exclusivity like their current one has with Warner Brothers Discovery, which is why Dark and Dark Elevation disappeared from YouTube. AEW did trademark the name Shockwave this past week, which is thought to be for a new show that could air on one of the Fox networks, and that AEW may be working out a deal with Fox for a new hour-long show to air possibly on FS1. Fox just dropped SmackDown off of its main broadcast network. They're not going to put AEW on Fox, but FS1 or the Tubi streaming service, which Fox owns, that could be a landing spot for them. Adding another hour of AEW television, it feels like overkill when the product is cold, but if Tony Khan can get a deal done with Fox and can get eyeballs on the product on a station other than just TNT and TBS, and if he can get paid for it, which is the key. So it's not a time buy, but he can actually bring more media rights money in from another partner. I don't see the downside in that. That's a deal that you make. If he can make a deal with Fox and get paid for it, you make that deal. And the more partners they have, the more potential options they have in the future, right? And more eyeballs they can get on their product. But with all of this talk of AEW getting a fourth show, possibly getting a fourth show, if that's what Shockwave turns out to be, I got a question emailed to me from Kyle in Liverpool, England, so I'll mention it here. And he said that he was watching Collision recently and could not help but think that Dynamite and Collision could benefit from a roster split. He says, for example, I would split the titles, keeping the World Tag, International, and TBS championships on Dynamite, and have TNT, Trios, and Women's World titles on Collision. Personally, I don't think the Continental title should be a physical championship, but a title bestowed upon the yearly tournament winner. But for argument's sake, I would have that championship float between shows. Considering Rampage is an extension of Dynamite, I would keep Dynamite talent exclusive to that show. If a split was to come into effect, how would you split the roster and who would you build each show around? I have been resistant to the idea of AEW doing a brand split, largely because I've seen how the brand split has played out in WWE over the last 20 years. And how badly they've bungled it. And I have no interest in seeing Tony Khan try to do the same. Plus, I also like having the freedom to be able to use, like if I'm Tony Khan, I like having the freedom to be able to use talents on both shows when the story calls for it. And not being handcuffed by a brand split. Like, oh, gee, I guess we can't do it because we got a brand split. We can't use this guy on Wednesdays. We're stuck with Saturdays. AEW has some glaring attendance issues right now, okay? It's bad. I mean, there are certain events where they'll post a certain attendance number and it's impressive. But on a lot of weeks, it's not good. And you want to split the brands at a time when even with their biggest stars all on the same show, you can have Will Ospreay and MJF and Ricochet debuts and has his first Dynamite match. And you've got Bryan Danielson and you've got Jon Moxley and you've got Mariah May. Like all of their top names can be on one show and they can still barely put 3,000 or 4,000 people in the building on most weeks. And you want to split the brands? Rampage is not even worth the hour every week. And I barely have the interest to even bother with Collision anymore. I mean, it's an effort. It's an effort for me to do it. Something has to change. But I don't think a brand split is going to do much to change that. I really don't. Now, if they were to do one, I think what Kyle has proposed here is not a bad idea at all. You know, having one roster dedicated to Dynamite and Rampage, having the other roster dedicated to Collision and Shockwave. I mean, that would make sense. divvying up the titles the way that Kyle laid out here is fine, except for one very important thing, which is that one roster would have a world championship and the other one would not. And the last thing I want them to do is make another fucking title. So that's a problem. The TNT title is not the AEW world title. No matter how hard you try to make it so, the TNT title is not and will not be your world championship. It will never be perceived that way. It's like when Brock Lesnar was champion on Raw and he was never around. Raw had an absentee champion, so what happened? The Intercontinental title, I think Seth Rollins had it. The Intercontinental title would headline the show a lot, and it did help elevate the value of that title a little bit, but it still wasn't a world title. The Intercontinental title was not looked at the same way. You're going to have a bitch of a time selling tickets to a show that has no world champion. Even if the title floats, if the champion is in the middle of feuding with somebody on Dynamite for the next 2 months, you're not going to have them on Collision. Bryan Danielson, Darby Allin, Jon Moxley, they're all involved right now in a story surrounding the AEW world title. So what are you going to do? You're going to have fucking Jack Perry as the face of Collision and Shockwave as TNT champion? You may as well cancel the shows now. None of this even matters if Tony Khan is still the primary booker for all 4 shows. If you are going to have a brand split, then you need to split everything, including the creative duties. Have Tony oversee one roster, have somebody else or a group of other people oversee the other one, the other 2 shows. Bryan Danielson, he's scaling back his in-ring work soon. I don't know if he might have an interest in helping out on a regular basis on the creative end. I'm sure he contributes now, but I don't know if this is something he would be interested in. Maybe he really does just want to go home and have more time at home. But I know they have people behind the scenes who contribute ideas or try to help Tony out, right? We've heard RJ City, for example. He helped out with the Tony Storm and Mariah May storyline. A lot of ideas came from him. They hired Jennifer Pepperman from WWE. She works with Mercedes, but also other talents there. Maybe give people like that more say in those shows. Shane McMahon may be coming in soon. God help me. I have no idea if this would be a good thing or not, but if he's coming in, if he's going to come in anyway, maybe give him a shot at helping book one of the 2 brands, if this is what they were going to do. Whatever it is, it cannot all be left in Tony's hands. He needs help. And none of this is going to matter without it. A brand split will not matter unless the ideas are there. You can split the brands and have 2 of the best brands that wrestling fans have ever seen. Without the ideas, it means nothing. Without the stories, it means nothing. You need to have interesting ideas and stories that help draw people to the show, on TV, and into the buildings. I don't care how you carve up the roster. Without that, you have the same issues that you have right now, and the same apathy towards the product that a lot of people have. If those are the people that you are trying to appeal to and bring back into the fold, I don't see how this helps without addressing all of the other issues first that I just mentioned.